Welcome to Implicating the Real. Today's show is part 2 of the conversation began in the previous episode. Let's get right into it. Hope you enjoy. Do you guys know, because I don't really know anything about the isn't there a Lumarian?
Lumarian, yeah.
Is that an actual, I don't know.
That's, okay,
historical
you guys brought up Lumanians. They're like the famous Lumanians. And I'm like, I think it's Lumarians.
Yeah.
Like, I think I've heard of people who are like the Lumarians, and it's like a different version of like Atlantis.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I wonder
Interesting.
if Lumanians is referencing the same thing. But
Right.
like in our history, it is Lumarians, right?
I think it could be Lemurians.
Oh.
Like Lemuria is like supposed to be like a forgotten like continent.
Lemuria was a continent proposed in 1864 by zoologist Philip Sclater, theorized to have sunk beneath the Indian Ocean, later appropriated by occultists in supposed accounts of human origins.
Yeah. Lemuria.
Interesting.
So Atlantis adjacent.
Atlantis, it's like the like East Coast, West Coast thing is like Atlantis, Lemuria, right?
Yeah.
Like at first they just started doing diss tracks, and then eventually they
beefs,
got too, the
yeah.
beefs got too deep.
Look at this map. This map shows the area circled between Africa and Australia.
Wow.
I'm just saying. All right, put that in the podcast. We're keeping that.
That's funny.
Lemuria confirmed.
I have a few tracks. There's a band called the Lumanians, which they play some weird like psychedelic music that I like.
Wait, are they Seth adjacent?
I have no idea if they have any knowledge of any of this, but
Is Lumeria like a other thing besides the Seth stuff?
It doesn't seem to be.
it's not. Lumeria isn't a Seth thing.
It's a genus
companion.
of moths.
Of moths?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Everyone loves moths.
Mm-hmm.
Moths are big in Castaneda.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why? Like, what do they...
It's so cryptic, but like, because Castaneda is constantly like, they're just like going out in the desert at night and like taking peyote and stuff and having experiences. But like, something about moths, like what he perceives as moth, I don't know if it's an actual real moth, but it's like some sort of
It's moths.
psychic entity or something. Yeah.
What did you say?
It's Mothman.
Just what I was thinking.
Yeah. The psychic entity that looks like a moth. It's like Castaneda was just hanging out with Mothman.
Yeah.
Which, like, fair enough, dude.
I was going to ask, he says the civilization was called Lumania. What is a civilization name? Like, because we don't even have a conception of other technological civilizations that come and go. Like, would ours be called Humania? I don't know. Like, what do you know what I'm saying? Like, what is the context of this name? Is this name actually coming from outside our history?
Right. It's like, where do you draw the borderline of, like, a civilization?
Because we name civilizations that are more like intra-civilizations. Am I using that right? Inter, like within our overall technological civilization.
Well, I would use civilization in, like, maybe a more limited sense than that. Where, like, I would argue that, like, in our history, we've had multiple civilizations already.
That's what I mean.
You know?
To the extent that we do give civilization names, it's that smaller context.
Right, yeah.
But that's why this is kind of interesting to me. It's like, what would Lumanians call us?
Right. That's a good question. Because you'd have to sort of situate it in like the like post-Enlightenment industrial era sort of thing. Because it's like sort of kind of getting transposed between like European contexts and then like colonial contexts.
We can't let Seth name it because he'll just add a number to something, right?
Yeah, right. Lumania 2. You could maybe call, we would have something, because it's like, it's mythical history, so it has to be something like kind of poetic.
Yeah.
Like we had the Enlightenment, so we could be called like the Enlightened ones. So something like that, you know?
I feel like if humanity actually like elected a council to come up with some name, it would just really annoy me. You know what I mean? Because the kind of people that would just sit around and figure something out.
That's like when the European Union wanted to find out what their like national anthem was going to be, and it ended up just being like "Joy to the World" or whatever.
Really? Yeah.
It's like they had to come up with like a bunch of committees and subcommittees and come up with something that everyone would be okay with.
Yeah.
Or no, it's not "Joy to the World." What is it? No, what is? Oh no, cut that out.
It's
I
a
got it
Wonderful
wrong.
World,
Cut it out.
or it's
That's too embarrassing.
We Are the World.
No, it's not "We Are the World."
That's kind of a flex if it's just relating to one geographical
Oh, to
area.
joy?
Ode to Joy. That's what it is. Yeah, because it's like, what's something that everyone can agree with? Joy is good. We like joy.
It just gets too generic.
Yeah.
All right, you got anything coming up here?
I did want to say one thing, just sort of as a disclaimer or just a note. In Nature, Person, and Reality, Seth stresses that violence and aggression are not the same thing. So I just want to read a couple of sentences. He says, because you consider aggression synonymous with violence, you may not yet understand that aggressive, forceful, active, mental, or spoken commands for peace could save your life. This is in a context of like, what should you do if somebody violently attacks you? 2 paragraphs prior, he says, birth is perhaps the most forceful aggression in your terms, of which you are capable in your system of reality. In the same way, the growth of any idea into temporal realization is a result of creative aggression. It is impossible to try to erase true aggressiveness. To do so would obliterate life as you know it. So I just wanted to mention that aggression should not be seen as a bad thing, which is probably exactly what the Lumanians were contending with.
Yeah.
Just they felt aggression and violence synonymous.
I like that about this material, that Seth kind of like reclaims these things. Like elsewhere, he talks about natural aggression in the same manner.
Yeah.
That like we just automatically make it a pejorative, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because it's easier to, in our black and white thinking, it just falls into that category.
I'm telling you, man, a lot of this feels like super like Nietzschean.
Yeah.
Well, especially with the part we're going to get to in a little bit, where we start talking about like the God concept and how it relates to like Lumania.
Yeah. Got anything coming up, or should I jump into something here?
The Lumanians were a very thin, weakly people, physically speaking, but psychically either brilliant or completely ungifted.
That seems like it was a cause for some sort of tension, right? Like you're either brilliant or adults.
I like that they're like skinny, weak nerds, but they're like really psychically powerful. But then like sometimes you're just a skinny, weak nerd and you don't have any psychic gifts, so you just suck.
Oh, man.
In some, you see the built-in controls cause so many blockages of energy in all directions that even their naturally high telepathic abilities suffered. The problem is they were eating too many seed oils. It was blocking their natural psychic channels. They formed energy fields around their own civilization. They were therefore isolated from contact with other groups. They did not allow technology to destroy them, however. More and more of them realized that the experiment was not a success. Some, after physical death, left to join those from the previous successful civilization, who had migrated to other planetary systems within the physical structure. Large groups, however, simply left their cities, destroyed by the force field, or destroyed the force fields that had enclosed them, and joined the many groups of relatively uncivilized peoples, mating with them and bearing children. These Lumanians died quickly, for they could not bear violence, nor react to it violently. They felt, however, that their mutant children might have a resulting disinclination towards violence, but without the prohibiting nerve control reactions with which they were endowed.
In the very next sentence, physically, the civilization simply died out. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it just seems like they're doomed from the beginning.
Yeah.
I wonder what the force fields were. Just kind of rolls right over that.
Right? Well, do you want to talk about the tunnels?
Sure. I mean, where does it come up?
It comes up in a while, but like, I guess maybe we can get there when we get there.
Sure.
Sort of like how physically the like situation was.
I got a couple of paragraphs after that. The vitality of the civilization was therefore weak, not because violence did not exist, but because freedom of energy and expression was automatically blocked along specific lines and from outside physically. They well understood the evils of violence in earthly terms, but they would have denied the individual's right to learn his own way and thus prevented the individual from using his own methods creatively to turn violence into constructive areas. Free will in this respect was discarded.
Mm-hmm.
I really do like these sort of sentiments that, like, you know, this is a reality where if you violate like free will, like, you're going to perish. You know, like, to me, it's pretty cool that, like, he's suggesting things are set up this way.
There's this one part too. It's kind of like a short thing, but if there's any like creatives in the audience that want like a cool sci-fi concept, like the like immediate post-Lumanian collapse civilization sounds very interesting. It says some few of the mutant children, so these are like half Lumanians, formed a small later group who traveled the area as itinerants in the following century with large bands of animals. They cared for each other mutually. And I'm going to insert here, it's implied that like that means the people and the animals cared for each other mutually. And many of the old legends concerning half man and half beast have come down through the ages simply from the memory of these old associations. I feel like that one is such an interesting idea that like they had this like really closed off psychic society that was like trying to be like nonviolent and not kill animals and all this stuff. But then like afterwards, the people that are like still like sort of remnants of that culture still like retain some of that culture, where they have like a kinship with like the animals, right?
It almost seems like it's like the hippie children of that failed generation. They're like, fuck you, man. I'm getting out of the cave. I'm going to go hang out with the animals.
Yeah. It's cool. It's such a cool idea. And it's just kind of like thrown as an aside there. Like, I don't think they talk about it anymore.
No. And I would love to know at least a little more, like, what is the connection with the half man, half beast? Is it just like a misinterpretation, or was like, what is the relationship that, like, from which we got this, our ideas, you know?
I wonder that when I talk to horse girls.
Yeah.
What is the relationship here?
Where did you come from?
I'm sorry to the horse girls in the audience. Y'all are great.
Didn't in Mass Events he talked about how, like, way back in human civilization, centuries, maybe even millennia, I think probably millennia ago, there were these really highly intelligent, gigantic bird species that human beings would sometimes go to if they desperately needed help, like say if their child was sick or something. And then these large birds would help them. And I vaguely remember he said that these birds, well, he did say these birds were remembered like mythologically. I don't remember exactly how, but I'm inclined to say as angels.
I feel like that's how we would interpret it today. Yeah. I don't remember that specifically.
Okay.
I do remember, I mean, he talks about like, we're just like energy and consciousness, and we have a lot of creativity and freedom when we decide to incarnate. And this has happened in various ways. And I guess this could be controversial to like a strictly materialist point of view, but like he says things like, no species is ever extinct. Like, because it can just choose to come back. Where with our physical way of looking at something is like, once it's gone, and let's like science can like revive it from DNA or something.
I found the quote. I should really just pull it up before I talk.
Oh yeah, no.
It's actually an Unknown Reality 1, where he says, at one time there were also species of birds, however, with high intelligence. This was before the period mentioned earlier. They were not humanoid, for example, people with wings. They were large birds with the capacity for dealing with concepts. They were social, could swim well, and for some time could live on the water. They had songs of great beauty and a most extensive vocabulary. They had talents. When he was a cave dweller, man saw these birds often, particularly in cliffs by water. Many times the birds saved children from falling. Man identified with their easy flight up the cliffsides and followed the sounds of their songs to safe clearings. These memories turned into the angel images.
Man, I'm reincarnating in that reality. I want to be by the bird people.
More lore for Joe.
I love the just no. Give me more lore. This is what I'm here for. It's just the weird lore.
I like, Joe, you have a very specific, you bring a specific kind of point of view to all this, because you're very, well, you identify as a materialist somewhat, right? Or something.
Sure.
But also you're like, in your social life, you're very into like role-playing games and like anime and yeah. So it's like, I don't know if sounds insulting, but it's like, I see you interested in all this stuff, but in a different organization. It's kind of like compartmentalized a little bit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Tip to mature adult living: learn how to compartmentalize.
I don't know. Seth might argue that that's overly conscientious.
I was just gonna say that.
You know what? However it works out, it shakes out at the end of the day. You just gotta like stay in your lane, play your part. Like you're in the mortal worlds, deal with the mortal things.
Well, the beauty of it, yeah, we're all doing what makes sense to us, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's fine. We're on the path.
Oh, let's see. Half man, half beast.
This gets into the God stuff on the next page. Or do you want to get into that?
Sure.
Top of 217.
Their god symbol was a male one, a strong, physically powerful male figure who would therefore protect them since they could not protect themselves. He evolved through the ages as their beliefs did, and into him they projected those qualities that they could not themselves express. He was much later chosen to appear as the old Jehovah, the god of wrath who protected the chosen people. The fear of natural forces was therefore initially extremely strong in them for the reasons given, and brought about a feeling of separation between man and those natural forces that nurtured him. They could not trust the earth, since they were not allowed to protect themselves against violent forces within it. Their vast technology and their great civilization was largely underground. Oh, we're not going to talk about that. Okay. Yeah, man. It's just slave morality. It's slave morality. The Christian God is because you've like internalized your lack of ability to exercise your will to power in the world. So you've created this like entity that's going to like protect you and sort of like vindicate you against the aggressors that you see around you.
Yeah, it was a step too far to allow like the so-called natives to do violence for them, but if it's a supernatural entity like a god, then it's okay.
Right.
Because they're outside the rules.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Well, and presumably like this god concept like isn't actually active. Like there's not actually an entity out there like doing the wrathfulness for them, right? Presumably.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like they're in a dangerous situation and they're just like praying for God to intervene somehow.
Yeah. Because that's like such an interesting thing where like they're really psychically advanced, but like they still are sort of like praying to this like ineffectual sort of entity, like psychic entity, you know?
That's a good point. Does he say psychically advanced or technologically advanced or both?
Well, the Lumanians, like, I guess they're technologically advanced because they have like the sound technology, but they're also like really psychically advanced.
Yeah, because of their art and stuff. But
I mean, he said in that funny quote, they're very thin, weakly people, psychically either brilliant or gifted. So
yeah,
that's interesting. It's saying like you can still be psychically advanced, and one bad belief can just lead you astray.
Right.
Like, and to me, that means that at some point you have to use your psychic abilities to challenge your beliefs, right? Like you can't just like accept something like this as the be all end all, and then you're just stuck in this path.
Yeah, but like this is interesting because he titled the chapter as like the multidimensional God, like more information about the multidimensional God. So presumably, like in this instance, Jehovah is still technically supposed to be referring to the multidimensional God. You know?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I mean, I'm just taking it more in the same vein as like, you know, their God is a reflection of their beliefs and their needs and stuff.
Right.
But yeah, well, and I feel like this is kind of a partial chapter because, spoiler alert, he kind of hints that he's going to talk about the third great civilization and doesn't. And Rob says in the italics at the very end. In the 563rd session, Seth mentioned that he would soon discuss the third of these cultures. This material was never received. It could have been, but because of the long break between the last two sessions on Seth's book, we simply did not remember to ask for it.
Or maybe we are the third civilization, and he was right, and he's just, the rest of the books talk about us. I don't know.
Well, I think that may be true, but I think they still forgot to like mention that, like, because I don't know. It's hard to say, like, did Seth fuck up or did they forget or like to what extent, but
He did say that these all happened before Atlantis, and you were saying that Atlantis is like a memory from the future. So
Yeah.
the third one's called America. We were really technologically advanced and also super psychologically advanced, but we weren't like weak nerds like the Lumanians were. We were actually really cool and also handsome.
Yeah. Yeah, Trump is our spokesperson.
Yeah.
Definitely not weak.
The
He'll
greatest
tell you.
civilization in all of multidimensional time. But like, okay, so the Lumanian god like punched through realities into our reality and then like became the Christian god, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to quantify like how that happens. If it like because we were also obsessed with like a powerful male figure, but like we didn't have the same hangups, that we like kind of tapped into like similar ideas of what God is. That there's like this crossover.
Well, there was like a point where
said he was much later to appear as the old Jehovah, the God of wrath, who protected the chosen people.
Yeah.
Is there more somewhere?
I thought there was a part where he talks about how like because Lumania is like because like time's weird, it's like literally like the way that we got like the Jehovah idea in our culture is that it's actually from like Lumanian culture. And like it like bled through kind of thing.
Like it was carried historically, or it was like psychically bled through?
It was like psychically bled through. Like
yeah,
it's like not even from our dimension kind of thing.
That's kind of what I was saying, but like it psychically bled through in a way that like because there was a magnetism for a similar sort of figure.
Yeah.
Those ideas came through.
Yeah.
About 2 paragraphs before the mention of Jehovah, he's just talking about how the Lumanians just carried memories, and I'll just read it. He says, as a child is physically protected from some diseases for a while after he emerges from his mother's womb, so for a brief period is a child cushioned against some psychic disasters for a short period after birth, and carries within him, still for his comfort, memories of past existences and places. So Lumanians for some generations were supported by deep subconscious memories of the civilization that had gone before. Finally, however, these began to weaken. They had protected themselves against violence, but not against fear. So presumably, if that is why they were able to like progress technologically so quickly, because they just had vague memories of technology, maybe they also had like them and their children brought forward their old memories of their god. And it just like unintentionally seeded our religions.
So if you're keeping your bingo card at home, you can put down a mark for space Jews. We got there.
That's a tough one to get.
Yeah, but it's always a fun surprise when it pops up.
I think that's a good point. And I think going back to, and maybe Liana, for you and I more so, but like I think we've like entertained ideas of reincarnation being real longer than maybe Joe. But like when you think of an individual reincarnating and compare that to a civilization, like it's not that foreign to us, I think, that if we feel like we have a skill that we just kind of plucked out of the ether from one of our former incarnations, and this is along those same lines, I think, right?
That the civilization would sort of like pluck this idea back up, and it would sort of like continue reiterating itself.
They have that psychic connection, and so like anything is accessible there. So if there's a similar need, then they could, and a strong enough desire, they could get that.
Interesting. The Jehovah.
Yeah, I do like the last sentence of that paragraph you just read. They had protected themselves against violence, but not against fear. It makes me think of the quote from earlier in the book where Seth says, like, a generation who hates war will not bring peace, but a generation who loves peace will.
Right.
And
yeah, because presumably, like with what you were saying, Liana, about aggression, it's like people who love peace will aggressively pursue peace.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They won't like shrink away from confrontation, but they will aggressively seek peace.
Mm-hmm.
And they set themselves up, the Lumanians did, to be a fear-based culture.
Right.
And so it's doomed to fail in that sense.
I think that's a good lesson to take away, that despite how forward-thinking they were in terms of anti-violence and how technologically developed they were, their civilization still failed because they were just consumed with fear.
Mm-hmm.
You have to overcome that.
I will, to give them credit, I think it's an extraordinary challenge to deal with this thing. And like, I think part of meeting the challenge is acknowledging that there's not necessarily a simple answer. This is like something you continually contend with. Like the simplest, when we think of people we disagree with, like especially in these highly charged times, like often the simplest solution is like, oh, well, if someone just offed that person, the world would be a better place.
Yes.
Right.
That's a lack of imagination, and that's not meeting the challenge that we have before us. Like you're meant to, like, again, going back to that cliche that we're all one, just like see the humanity in that person you disagree with, like, and try to like come together, with your ideas. Like it is a separation of ideas, and like trying to get someone to see how you see and allowing yourself to try to see how they see. And it seems like the path that we're supposed to take.
Yep.
I feel bad that I can't do the name drop for like where this idea came from. And like, that's apologies listener, that's a error on my part in not fully doing my own background research. But like, there's that kind of newish idea in like sort of social science, like theory of like being like the like life versus death drive sort of, and like making sure that you're always on the side of like life as opposed to the side of death. And how like if you end up finding yourself in like a death centered like way of interacting with the world, like you're always doomed to fail.
Just meaning explicitly like your solution to solving problems is like killing your enemy.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Where it's like you don't like killing your enemy isn't the goal.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't do anything,
Well, that's why like the idea of like holy war is particularly toxic, because it's just like an endless justification for killing.
Right. Whereas like being on the side of life is the idea of like, I'm trying to like make something. I'm trying to like construct like something positive.
Yeah.
Seth
is big on, I don't know which book he harps on it the most, but like the ends don't justify the means, which really forces you to, you can't justify hell in the prevention of hell, which is a lot of like our justification of war.
Right.
Like I have to kill all these millions of people so the world would be a better place.
Right.
It's just like absurd from, an outside angle, but like you see how people get caught up in that. In that perspective.
Can I lore dump for a while?
Yeah,
I'll just
get
like
in there.
A bunch. Okay, cool. Their vast technology and their great civilization was largely underground. They were, in those terms, the original cavemen, and they came out from their cities through caves also. Caves were not just places of protection in which unskilled natives squatted. They were often doorways to and from the cities of the Lumanians. Long after the cities were deserted, the following natives, uncivilized, found these caves and the openings. In the period that you now think of as the Stone Age, the men you think of as your ancestors, the cavemen, often found shelter not in rough, naturally formed caves, but in mechanically created channels that reached behind them, and in the deserted cities in which once the Lumanians dwelled. Some of the tools fashioned by the cavemen were distorted versions of those they had found.
That seems to imply that we are the third civilization, doesn't it?
Because there was like the cavemen?
Because he's kind of saying like historically the cavemen found their caves, but I guess caves survived probably a long time. So I don't know if that's necessarily true either.
Yeah. While the civilization of the Lumanians was highly concentrated in that they made no attempt to conquer others or to spread out to any great extent in area, they did send out, over the centuries, outposts from which they could emerge and keep track of the other native peoples. These outposts were constructed underground. From the original cities and large settlements, there were, of course, underground connections, a system of tunnels, highly intricate and beautifully engineered. Since these were an aesthetic people, the walls were lined with paintings and drawings, and sculpture was also displayed along these inner byways. There were various escalated systems, some conveying people on foot, some conveying goods. It was not practical to construct such tunnels to the many outposts, however, which were fairly small communities and relatively self-supporting. Some were a good distance away from the main areas of commerce and activity.
Do you guys get the sense that the cities were not necessarily underground, but they were like protected, and then to get to them you had to go underground?
I thought
I
the cities
never
were
considered
underground.
that. That's a good point. They might not be underground. But I
Yeah.
figured they would be because they don't,
Yeah.
they're so scared and defenseless, or so they think they are.
And it seems like their sort of like technology didn't want to like build on top of the earth. It sort of just wanted to like shape the earth, which implies that you'd kind of go downwards. Yeah, like underground. They like build, it's like the first floor is like the top one, and then you go down like sub 1, sub 2, sub 3.
Yeah. Yeah, it just left me with that question, but I think you're right.
These outposts were situated in many scattered areas, but there were a fairly large number of them in what is now Spain and the Pyrenees. There were several reasons for this, one having to do with the existence of rather giant-sized men in the mountain areas. Because of the timid nature of these Lumanian people, they did not enjoy outpost existence, and only the bravest and most confident of them were given such an assignment, which was temporary to begin with.
And Rob adds a little note that the massive he uses subhuman skull in a cave in the French Pyrenees Mountains.
Which was discovered after, like 8 months after Seth gave this one.
Yeah.
So Seth spake it into existence.
Yep. Spaking, he does.
It was spaking.
The book title should have been Seth Spakin.
Seth spake. The caves again served as doorways opening outward, and often what seemed to be the back of the cave was instead constructed of a material opaque from the outside but transparent from the inside. The natives of the area using such caves for natural shelter could therefore be observed without danger. These people reacted to sounds that are not audible to your ears. Their peculiar fear of violence intensified all of their mechanisms to an amazing degree. They were forever alert and on guard. It is difficult to explain, but they could mentally pitch a thought along certain frequencies, a highly distinguished art, and then translate the thought at a given destination in any of a number of ways, into form or color, for example, or even into a certain type of image. Their language was extremely discriminating in ways that you could not understand, simply because gradations in pitch, frequency, and spacing were so precise and complicated. Communication, in fact, was one of their strong points, and it was developed to such a high degree simply because they feared violence so deeply and were constantly on the alert. They banded together in large family groups, again in need for protection. Contact between children and parents was at a very high level, and children were acutely uncomfortable if out of the sight of their parents for any amount of time.
How often they were like actually in danger. It sounds like they're really protected. But
yeah, they seem super
they were
paranoid.
still like so fear-based. Yeah.
In my head, now I imagine them with like huge ears, because it's just like they can hear so well.
Yeah, or big eyes because they're living underground in the dark, presumably.
Yo,
And
aliens?
no.
They don't. Yeah.
Full circle.
It doesn't talk about the lighting situation. Yeah, they developed all these abilities just out of fear, sounds like. Or some of them anyways.
I like how he says, this is difficult to explain, but they could mentally pitch a thought along certain frequencies. Like to us, we would just be like, oh yeah, Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. But back then, he's just like, this is really difficult.
That's a weird concept. Like they could like transmit information without the means of a physical connection.
Yeah.
I don't think Rob and Jay knew about Bluetooth.
Let's see. I'm just trying to get all the lore for our listeners.
I like this line. They were as triumphant about their descent into the earth as any race ever was who left the earth.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm getting that from how he's talking about it.
Underground is the final frontier. We've explored the moon more than we've explored the caves of the Pyrenees.
I wanted to read this other sentence. He's talking about the individuals who ran the outposts who were really uncomfortable being out there. They were limited in numbers and largely cut off from the main areas of their own civilization. They developed, therefore, an even greater telepathic activity and a rapport with the earth above their heads so that the slightest tremor of footstep and the most minute movements above that were not usual were instantly noted. I wonder if that's what he means by they were like psychically brilliant, like telepathic and just able to perceive things at a distance.
Yeah, their desperation forced them to develop those.
They've got like the spidey sense where it's like, oh, there's a guy up there.
Yeah.
One of those giant subhumans.
Yeah, they can tell if it's, like a squirrel or a bird versus something else.
Oh, here's a crazy one. There were frequent peepholes, so to speak, through to the surface from which they could make observations and cameras situated there that kept the most precise pictures, not only of the Earth, but of the stars. That's crazy to me that they had cameras, and presumably we might never find these cameras, but maybe the cameras were not even made of metal. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, and is it long enough ago that they wouldn't survive? I don't know.
It's he says the cave survived. And he's talking about like the paintings, and there's like cave paintings that he sort of references later that's still like there.
I think the caves are probably I don't know, like if this is old enough that they now appear like they might be natural, like they've like eroded or shifted or water's gone through them or something, in the sense where it's not like obviously human made, artificially made caves.
They might have made them intentionally like that so that anyone pursuing them wouldn't be like, oh, this cave is not a natural formation.
That's true too.
That's a Halo reference.
Oh shit, it is a Halo reference.
But also, like, the cameras were on the surface.
Yeah.
So they weren't protected in caves where it's like a steady, maintainable environment, like a wine cellar.
Yeah.
They probably got like kicked around and just destroyed after hundreds of years.
Well, because like people came and lived in the caves afterwards too.
Yeah. And you got all the animals and the elements on the top.
Yeah.
I think it is weird that they like had the cameras specifically to go look at the stars. Because, like, presumably they cared enough about looking at the stars, but, like, they were so scared that they couldn't come out and just look at them.
You know, that's kind of like us, though. Like, we're like, oh, we could go into the deep sea, but let's just send this probe down instead.
Yeah,
I don't want to get flattened.
That's fair. Not wanting to get flattened.
I love that he's like, we're going to talk about the third civilization, but I got more things about the Lumanians.
He also never got back to Rob about the orbit and the position. He's just like, set that aside for now and forever.
Yeah. We'll just call it position. Like, it's fine.
And it's often like right before a break that he's like promises like something, and then it just never gets on the same track.
Okay, I sort of like glazed over when I read the thing about the art. Like, what kind of art is he talking about here?
Yeah, like kinesthesia.
Yeah.
We should read it for the listener.
Okay. Do you want to do it?
I have to find it.
Okay, I'll do it. Okay, so we're talking about like Lumanians had really intricate art. It says, you would consider, for example, something very simple, say a drawing of an animal. You would perceive it simply as a visual object, but these people were great synthesizers. A line was not simply a visual line, but according to an almost infinite variety of distinctions and divisions, it would also represent certain sounds that would be automatically translated. An observer could automatically translate the sounds before he bothered with the visual image if he wanted to. In what would appear to be a drawing of an animal, then, the entire history or background of the animal might also be given. Curves, angles, lines, all represented, beside their obvious function, objectively in the drawing, a highly complicated series of variations in pitch, tone, and value, or if you prefer, invisible words. Distances between lines were translated as sound pauses, and sometimes also as distance in time. Color was used in terms of language in communication, in drawings and paintings, representing somewhat, as your own color does, emotional gradations. The color, however, its value of intensity served to further refine and define, for example, either by reinforcing the message already given by the objective value of the lines, angles, and curves, and by the invisible word messages already explained, or by modifying these in any given number of ways. And then he asks, do you follow me here? And Rob's like, yeah. The size of such drawings also spoke its own message. In one way, this was a highly stylized art, and yet it allowed for both great preciseness of expression in terms of detail and great freedom in terms of scope. It was obviously highly compressed. This technique was later discovered by the third civilization, and some of the remnants of drawings done in imitation of it still exist. But the key to interpretation have been completely lost, so all you could see would be a drawing devoid of the multi-sensual elements that gave it such great variety. It exists, but you could not bring it alive.
Yeah.
This reminds me of like stylized QR codes, that the QR code itself looks like a picture, but when you actually scan it, it's a link to a website with a lot more information.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you lose the ability to interpret the QR code into a link, a lot of the information is lost, just like how we cannot look at this art and experience it in the same way.
I was thinking of like how a musician could just read music on paper as like something similar, like with the space in between the lines and stuff. Like, I don't know if it's like a one-to-one thing or if there's something more going on, but like you're saying, if you don't know how to read this, you're never gonna figure it out.
Yeah. I kept going back and forth of whether I thought this art would be like good or not, you know? Because like if your lines are restricted by having to convey like the words that you're saying, like they might not just be as visually, like they can't provide as much visual information, you know?
I think creative constraint can almost always be good. It can always be bad for sure.
It like reminds me of like, we were talking about like VR movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, to me, shooting something in 3D and allowing a viewer to like walk around in a scene is like worse for like filmmaking because it like destroys the ability for you to do like framing, right? Like you can no longer prescribe a frame by which you're like viewing the scene. And this seems like that, where there's like too many open variables, you know?
Yeah. Since we had that discussion, I actually watched part of a VR show.
Yeah.
And it took some getting used to it, but I feel like you would get used to it. And you actually can't like walk around in it, but you can turn your head.
Okay.
So so it'll position you in that framing, but like you can like turn and look at the end table, and you can turn away from the action. But
yeah, well, like video games have had that issue for a long time too, right? Where like they have to decide whether they're going to just like have a scene play out like that you can walk around in, or if they're going to do the like Final Fantasy thing where they're like, you're just in a movie now.
Yeah.
You know?
The weird thing is like, they'll cut to a scene and all of a sudden there's like someone like standing like a foot away from you. And it's like, you have that like sense of personal space. You're like, I don't want to be this close to this person, It's just like that sort of thing.
I wanted to say that like our art though is framed by our experience as this particular species of physical being. So like when you say framing, sure, and when you say personal space, sure, but when you said personal space, I was like, yeah, but people who are immediately after death in their like near-death experience state, where they think of person and they're instantly there, that is how they're perceiving reality. Where they might just be like, oh shit, like I'm here in the room and she doesn't even know that I'm here and I'm just watching like a creep. And like for you, like framing, yeah, but that's like, that just makes you think, how would a 4-dimensional or 5-dimensional being look at things where we need framing because it's easier for us to see the world projected onto our retinas as like this sort of 2-dimensional curved image. But then how would a 4D being see 3D? Would they be able to like walk through the scene as you were kind of describing? Where you're just like, oh, that's too much. You lose framing, yeah, but you gain almost infinite framing.
Right. If you had like a 3-dimensional perceptual apparatus, you can see all the angles at the same time.
Right. Because it makes me like, sometimes I wonder how animals who can perceive UV look at our art. Like birds can see so much. So when they're like looking at our art, do they think, damn, these humans only use like a third of the color palette? Like what's wrong with them? Their art is so drab.
Yeah, right. It would lack like, it'd be like looking at a picture that like doesn't have a lot of dynamic range in it, right?
Yeah. Or like we can only hear sound up until a certain frequency. Dogs can hear higher, rats can hear higher. So when animals listen to our music, are they just like, have these people not realized that other octaves exist? Like if I made songs only within 2 octaves, they'd be really, I don't know, they might be good. Probably 8-bit-ish music, which I guess could be,
Or like stuff that's made for like people talk about how like, oh, the pop music they make for the radio is bad because they only make it in like so that it can like be heard through like radio transmission, which like limits the amount that you can do with like certain ranges and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
I was going to say too, with like the VR thing, even if you could walk around, like I think it ultimately would put the onus on the drama of the story being so compelling that you wouldn't want to look away. Like that would be the flex of like an actual real art in that sense, that like you have the freedom to like turn around and look at this side of the room, but like what's going on over here is so compelling you can't take your eyes off it. Like if you think about like if you were in a real situation where there's drama happening, it's probably going to suck you in. You're probably not going to look at the details of the
well, that's really interesting to me because as someone with ADHD, I do that a lot.
Yeah.
Where something is happening, but I'm like, oh fuck, but look at that painting over there. Did you ever notice that green is different from that green? Like it's like I can't, it's just a compulsion. And so I notice all these little things and people are like, how did you notice that? Well, because when this shit was happening, my brain was like, oh, look over here.
Yeah, it's because the entire last 20 minutes of conversation I was not involved with.
It reminds me of when I was a child, I was in wrestling for like 10 years. And like every once in a while, you're just like deadlocked in a position. Like sometimes like you're actually like almost getting pinned or something, but like you're just like, and then you just like have to like, you're struggling, but you're just kind of like in a stalemate position. And then you're just like noticing things, just
You're
like
bored
looking
of
around.
fighting.
Like you're like still physically acting, but like it's just, you're at a stalemate. It's kind of funny. I don't know. Surprised how much we're getting out of this chapter.
Yeah.
Squeeze the rock, man.
I wanted to say there's one of the artists I like to listen to. I don't know if you guys have heard of Aphex Twin.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of his most famous songs, Window Licker. If you run that through a spectrograph program, which basically just visualizes the sound spectrum, in some songs he encodes images. So I think Window Licker specifically has his face, and I believe another song. No, at the end of Window Licker, there's also like this really pretty spiral, and I believe Venetian Snares took that concept. And in a song named Songs About My Cats, there's an image encoded in the spectrogram of his cats.
Huh.
Interesting.
And like I know the part of the song where the spiral in the Aphex Twin Window Licker song plays. And you can, this is really hard to explain with words. If you know that it's a spiral and you hear the song, you can kind of be like, oh yeah, I can see how that creates a spiral.
But that's cool. So that it makes that visual audio connection.
Yeah, but only after you know. But I'm like, if I were a bird and I could see UV. If I were Lumanian and I could see these images, I feel like they probably very instinctively and naturally see the colors and the distances and the sounds and like all that just like floods their mind instantly.
I mean, that's probably what they teach, the Lumanians taught their kindergartners, right? Like,
probably.
This is
honestly, yeah.
Like, listen to this spiral.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you had 40 songs that were like encoded and you showed all the kids the songs and the shapes, they'd probably be able to pick it up really quickly.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Sometimes I wonder, no, there are people who can like do that with Morse code, right? They could just, you can play it to them and they'll be like, oh yeah, I know this message. Whereas meanwhile, I'm like looking at the chart for like 20 minutes being like, was that a dot or
Right, yeah.
Yeah, you can develop skills in anything, I suppose. It's interesting.
Isn't that what language is? I have like this weird connection with Chinese where it was my first language, so I can't speak it. But sometimes there will be a concept for which there is no English equivalent, and it drives me nuts because I want to say to my like non-Asian partner, I need this thing, but I have to use like this whole noun clause to describe what I need, but it's one word in Chinese.
Yeah.
But like, you know, sometimes my mom will say this Chinese idiom or word, and instantly there'll be like this image in my head, and I'm like, man, I can't make that image with English. I can make some other English image with English, but not that specific one. Like it carries, that particular sound in Chinese carries such like a strong weight for that specific image. Right. But then again, like so does all language.
I don't know. Does Seth get into language in this book? I don't know if I understand to the extent that I would like to his explanation of language. Like he uses the term cordellas. I don't know if that's like a term that he originally created, but he keeps emphasizing that our language is based upon like the spaces between, which makes
something like that, but it also rides on telepathy.
Yeah.
So we think.
So like the spaces between the words are like when the meaning's conveyed?
I don't know if it's the between the words.
The sound is just accidental?
The context, of the spaces is somehow, like I said, I'm trying to explain something that I don't understand, so I don't know.
It's like we're all actually just speaking Morse code, but then we're like using other like sounds to like intersperse in between them, and we just don't realize it.
Yeah, does he go so far to say that like we are actually just using telepathy, and then our verbal language just gives us the filter through which we allow ourselves to understand? Yeah,
kind of like a placebo effect. Yeah, that was my understanding.
Yeah.
I wonder how he explains like certain languages, like, you know, working with people who are like not English first language speakers. Like there's the thing where like there are words that are similar in English, like the sounds are similar, but like if you mispronounce them, you can say one thing instead of a different thing. And like people being like misunderstood in like spoken word context. It's like, I wonder how he explains that. Does that mean that the concepts bleed into each other? Because a lot of times the concept seems very like accidentally similar, you know?
Yeah. Well, I've heard like just people from our culture, like when they like drill down into it, like they express the marvel of our ability to like understand each other at all. You know, when you think about it, like I guess the layman's quick explanation is like you look up a word in a dictionary and it's a bunch of words, and then you have to look up each of those words and it's a bunch of more words, and it's just like that maybe is fine in itself if it actually like connected to something, but it's just it connects to itself, right? Like where does the concept connect to a real thing?
I mean, there's like the Wittgenstein thing, right? Of like the meaning families or like language games. where it's like, well, what does the word connect to? The word connects to all of your lived experiences of being in a situation where someone uses the word, where like, you know, you are like at a restaurant and then like you're trying to, you know, eat soup and then somebody says spoon and they like hand you a spoon and you're like, what does spoon mean? Like have a good meal, you know? And then like you're at a store and someone like points at like the cutlery section and they say spoon and you're like, wait, why is he telling me to have a good meal? Oh, that's not what that means. You know, like.
But does it solve the problem that like that example already utilizes people who understand what spoon means? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, I don't have any good examples off the top of my head. Aren't there people who are born blind, deaf, and mute, but they're still able to learn and communicate?
Mm-hmm.
And it's because they have lived examples. Like, Helen Keller wasn't born blind, so she had, like, some really tiny amount of, like, time. I don't know, like, I think it was less than 2 years. But, like, she knew what water was. She knew what water felt like. So I think that the woman who taught her would, like, put Helen's hand in water and then write on her palm water and just do that repeatedly until, like, obviously this intelligent child is like, oh, okay. But then you have, like, animals who, I don't know, I haven't looked too much into this. You know those buttons where they have, like, pets, they buy, like, 60 buttons and record their voice saying, like, food, walk, love, whatever, on those buttons. And when the dog or cat presses the buttons, they'll hear that sound. Some people say that their dog or cat has been able to explain some pretty complex concepts, but I don't know if that's just simple association where the dog is like, oh, this button, when I press it, they always walk me afterwards. Or this button I press it and I get a hug. I don't know.
Yeah.
Especially with other primates, like
Yes.
they've been able to do a lot with like the picture boards or whatever.
Yeah.
Of being able to have like a pretty extensive vocabulary of stuff that they can like say and point to. And
Yeah.
like make like complex like combinations too, you know?
Yeah, didn't Coco the gorilla have like a pet cat, and when it died, didn't she sign Coco sad or something?
Oh yeah, because they taught her like sign language actually. That's
Mhm.
true, yeah.
And then there's Alex the gray parrot who was able to, but I don't know, you could argue that was all trained, that he was able to identify like materials and be asked questions and answer things.
Well, the answer is just that like them being trained is beside the point because like we're all trained too, you know? Like that's the whole point is it is training. Like society, like socially, you train yourself to be able to use it.
But you mean like a 1-for-1 training, like they taught the specific response?
Yeah, I think they taught Alex like what different materials are. I mean, there's a guy on YouTube who does this, but his parrot is not seemingly as accurate as Alex, where he'll give his parrot like an object and be like, what is this made of? Wood, rock, glass, metal. And the parrot will like be able to, and he'll give him new novel things that the parrot has never seen before. And the parrot touches it and answers to not 100% degree of accuracy. So when I watched it, I'm like, is the parrot just guessing until it gets the treat? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, when I'm tutoring kids, there's a lot of human kids that are out here just guessing until they get a treat.
Yeah. You know what? I think Alex learned colors, and at one point he asked, what color am I?
Oh, that's cute.
It is cute. I do believe that because like there's so many mirror studies about animals that you can tell they know it's them because they'll see something on their head, and instead of thinking it's another animal, they'll reach to where that thing is and like take it off.
Interesting.
And like in these mirror experiments, they are curious about how they look. So
Yeah.
Well, this is to say that this art was highly developed for the Lumanians.
Yeah. We need to get some Lumanians to come over here and teach us how to make this art.
Jump down here. Their communicative abilities and therefore creative abilities were more vital, alive, and responsive than yours are. When you hear a word, you may be aware of a corresponding image in your mind. With these people, however, sounds automatically and instantly built up an amazingly vivid image that was not three-dimensional by any means, but internalized, but was far more vivid than your usual mental images indeed. Certain sounds, again, were utilized to indicate amazing distinctions in terms of size, shape, direction, and duration, both in space and time. Sounds automatically produced brilliant images, in other words. For this reason, there was an easy distinction between what is called inner sight and outer sight, and it was quite natural for them to close their eyes when seated in conversation in order to communicate more clearly, enjoying the ever-changing and immediate inner images that accompanied any verbal interchange. They learned quickly, and education was an exciting process because this multisensuous facility automatically impressed information upon them, not simply through one sense channel at a time, but utilizing many simultaneously. That's kind of badass that you can learn way faster that way.
I just wanted to mention this one tiny factoid because it's lore. I don't know if you already mentioned this, but they move mass with sound, and that's how they built their tunnels.
Oh yeah. The way that they made the like tunnels was the sound technology.
Mm-hmm.
So like presumably if they look sort of like they were like carved up by water, like that would sort of explain that.
Interesting. Here he says, I've been speaking about the Lumanians in some detail because they are a part of your psychic heritage. The other two civilizations were in many ways more successful, and yet the strong intent behind the Lumanian experiment was extremely volatile. While they were not able to solve the problem of violence as they understood it in your reality, their passionate desire to do so rings throughout your own psychic environment.
Oh, here's the part that I was looking for before. Because of the true nature of time, the Lumanians still exist as they were in your terms. They are often bleed-throughs in the psychic atmosphere. These do not occur by chance, but when some kind of report causes effects to leap between systems that otherwise appear quite separated. And so there have been such bleed-throughs between your own civilization and the Lumanians. Various old religions picked up on the idea of the Lumanians' fierce god figure, for example, in whom they managed to project their concepts of force, power, and violence. This god who had meant to protect them when nonviolence would not allow them to protect themselves. There's a bleed-through now in the making, so to speak, in which the Lumanians' multidimensional concepts of art and communication will be glimpsed by your own people, but in a rudimentary form.
And he does say after that, because of the nature of probabilities, there is also, of course, a system of reality in which the Lumanians succeeded in their experiment with nonviolence and in which a completely different type of human being emerged.
So that implies that we emerged out of them, I guess.
You mean we emerged out of the successful one?
Lumanians? No, because that
Yeah.
sentence also implies that
Yeah.
we emerged out of Lumanians, but in that other probable reality, a different type of human being emerged. Meaning in both realities, we emerged.
Yeah.
But in that one, this experiment was successful, and they just like have people that can't do violence or aggression anymore.
Or they figured it out and...
I mean,
Like
I think,
civilization.
yeah, I think their civilization collapsed because of their fear, not because of the whole violence thing. Just
Right. So they found a way to express their desire to act creatively without violence.
Mhm.
Interesting. Got any more? It's right at the end of the chapter already.
Yeah, my only connection is I think it's funny that he made the connection that modern art is not from this dimension. It's actually Lumanian stuff bleeding through.
wait, did he actually say? Oh yeah.
Wait, what did he say?
He said,
Oh, there's bleed through now in the making, so to speak, in which the Lumanians' multidimensional concepts of art and communication will be glimpsed by your own. That one?
Yeah. Anyone who's like, modern art, I hate it, I don't understand it. It's okay, it's from aliens.
All of this may seem very strange to you simply because your concepts of existence are so specific and limiting. Ideas of probable realities and probable men and gods may strike some of you as quite absurd, and yet, as you read this book, you are but one of the probable yous. Other probable yous would not consider you real, of course, and some might indignantly question your existence. Nevertheless, the probable system is not just a philosophical question. If you are interested in the nature of your own reality, then it becomes a highly personal and pertinent matter. As the various qualities of the Lumanians are still present in your psychic atmosphere, as their cities still coexist in land areas now called your own, so other probable identities coexist with the identities you now call your own. That's it. Chapter 15.
If you're Australian and you know how to move matter with sound, contact us.
Yeah, I'd be interested. You know, I'm going to have like tags on our episodes for like the official podcast email and stuff. So we're going to get some feedback from people.
God, I hope. Please send us your weird shit. Send me weird shit. Send me lore.
Joe can be in charge of the lore emails.
I will read your letters. I will look at your fan art. Send them to me.
I did want to say, it makes me wonder if... So you mentioned before that Seth was using the term native, which we consider as negative sometimes. Like, it can be
Sure.
viewed in a negative light, especially when he uses terms like uncivilized. But to me, like, I think he's using the language of the times, but I think he himself also doesn't perceive them as negative.
It's not the negativity. It's the fact that it's in a dichotomy. That's weird. the fact that civilized versus native is even like a dichotomy at all, because like there's no reason to assume that something that's native is not civilized unless you're coming from a colonial context in which the natives are not the civilized people, right?
Right, but that also is said from the perspective that civilization is a good thing to strive towards, and that civilization is not the lesser, more progressed of the two options.
But either way, you could have a native civilization. Like,
yes.
The dichotomy precludes that concept.
I agree, but I think that because this was the 70s, I think that he was just speaking to the masses who would say like, oh, your little town is not what I would consider civilized, but like the greater definition of civilized as in like higher intelligence organization. I don't know if Seth is putting that on those words.
Well, he is, because he like, there's this part where he talks about like, they came from the earlier civilization, so they were able to advance themselves more quickly. Like, advance in what way? Like, they got to the higher like technology level, you know?
Yeah.
And therefore, they're more worthy of being talked about than the other like quote unquote native people.
I think ultimately the advance is like a spiritual, psychic advancement, and technology is one way of proceeding.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure. Just because I've seen Seth use words that are not real, quote unquote, like time is not real, but he still has to speak to us in that framework.
Right.
And I was actually like, while discussing this with you guys, I was actually wondering if Seth would say that these technological people are actually much more stunted than the quote-unquote uncivilized natives he talks about. Because the whole chapter is about how certain individuals will reincarnate together over and over again in a society to learn these stupid lessons about fear that they didn't learn.
Mm-hmm.
So presumably, one could... Like, it's possible Seth, if he were here, could say, oh yeah, I never talk about the natives because they already solved the problems. They were not afraid of violence. They were not afraid of fear. They didn't think that they needed to rely on technology. They were so much more advanced that their groups of peoples did not need to last decades or centuries to learn their lessons, and therefore they never left behind technology because they didn't need it, because they mastered the use of thought, belief, and ideas to create their reality. Like, it's possible that Seth would say they were, in that sense, way more progressed than Atlantis, than Lumanians, than even us today.
He might, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to the extent that they weren't held back in the same way the Lumanians were, they were psychologically advanced.
Right. Yeah.
Because they're able to utilize the feelings that come through their being.
Right.
Could they make tunnels using sound?
But they didn't need to make tunnels because they weren't weak pussies.
They were big subhumans with big, strong skulls.
Yeah.
Stomping around the Pyrenees.
Yeah.
Going fi fo fum. I smell the blood of a Lumanian.
He must get into like the beginning of humanity too. Like we haven't touched on it really, but
yeah, that's in Mass Events though.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When he talks about how we came from dreaming.
Where did we come from?
Dreaming? That's kind of like a really... it's doing a lot of work, that word.
Reality is just a solidified dream.
Yeah.
That's kind of poetic.
He kind of says like the first people were kind of like sleepwalking.
Okay, that's like sort of... I think that tracks with some origin myths.
And I like it in, like, we touched upon this, a few episodes ago, but in medias res, like, in the beginning, it's almost like they're sleepwalking, and then like the birth of this reality is just becoming self-aware of it, basically. And
not from monkeys. That's the point.
Right, yeah.
Not from monkeys.
Yeah, putting it in terms of, I guess it is a form of creationism, I guess, but a different spin than normally.
Yeah. We came out of the dream time.
But I've often thought like that's what this reality is, that it's like, it's a collective dream. And because there's so many people so focused on a very specific way of things being, that like it holds its solidity or consistency more than a normal dream. Mm-hmm. I mean, I like that explanation of what reality is. I'm sure there's a couple more nuances to add to that, but I think that makes sense to me. And we see that in the sense where like whatever study has done, like, oh, this group of people sat here and meditated and like violence during this time drop, or anything where you can be in a theater watching a stupid comedy, and because it's packed and everyone's laughing their asses off, it's just the best time. I feel like those experiences are things we recognize. You're just getting on the same frequency as all the people around you. Well, we should probably call it, huh?
Enjoy the lore dump.
That's our show, but fear not, the never-ending conversation continues next week. If you're enjoying the show, please be so kind as to subscribe, rate, and review, and if you're feeling frisky, tell a friend. Contact us at implicatingthereal@gmail.com. You can support the show at patreon.com/implicatingthereal. We are doing our best, but whatever support you can lend helps us appreciably. We are not affiliated with the publishers or proprietors, but we encourage you to get the books. You can follow along as we endeavor to dive deep into the Sethian worldview, and there's really nothing like cultivating your own relationship with the material. Until next week, we wish you a fun good evening.